Tonight on Real News from the Blaze, the Democrats roll out the war on women rhetoric yet again. SC, what are we talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it might be hard to oppose a piece of legislation called the Violence Against Women Act, but actually it's not. It's actually pretty easy. The trick is, can Republicans learn to do it without falling into the war on women rhetoric? We'll see.
That sounds like quite a trick. All that and much more on Real News from the Blaze coming up in just 60 minutes.
This is not going to be about politics. This is about principles. We're going to take it upon ourselves to be part of the solution.
We are going to restore history, restore our honor, restore his idea that character is what matters.
Let us not lose this battle because we sat down.
This is the Glenn Beck Program.
Hello, America, and welcome to the Glenn Beck Program and to GBTV, the network that you are building. Were we to cover the stories that actually matter, the mainstream media would look pretty foolish. So what do you say we give that a try? Here's what they're covering today. All these stories that don't really seem to... Oh, wait a minute, the Go-Go's, the punk roots, and their meteoric rise? Oh, do you really... I mean, does vacation and how that came about affect you in any way? Would you even put the Facebook story in your Facebook status update? Most likely, no. So today, we're going to make the mainstream media again look foolish and cover the stories that you need to know. And here's what I want you to keep in mind as we go through them. Common sense and the truth. That's it. This is what we're lacking. This is the answer to everything. Common sense and the truth. It's really easy to get lost in left versus right, that game. Resist the temptation to follow an agenda and stick to common sense and the truth. If the networks just did those two things, you'd be seeing different stories today. You'd see the NATO summit that's just about underway. There's about 3,000 police officers that are assigned for security for this. Violent bandana-wearing protesters are clashing with residents and police already. They've knocked over trash cans, pushed large trash containers into the streets. It hadn't even started yet. Businesses are actually boarding up their windows, and the city put up a heavy metal fence to cordon off the summit venue. It's going to get good, isn't it? Meanwhile, on the other side of the globe, Greece is currently trying to weather the tsunami of capital flight. It's a run on the banks. The bank executives are saying their outflows are now becoming unstoppable. Quote, "The fuse is burning, and the only two options now are a controlled explosion where Germany steps in to ensure an orderly exit," which means that Germany and the rest of Europe still lose, or an uncontrolled explosion, which means everybody loses. We're all connected now. Mutually assured economic destruction. If they fall, Spain falls, Europe falls, we all fall. Greece has just been downgraded again, this time from AAA, BBB, now to CCC. Meanwhile, the Iranian officials are once again calling for the destruction of Israel. This time, they're calling for an Islamic awakening movement that would, quote, demolish the Zionist regime. By the way, that includes us. The comments were made on Nakba Day, which is their term for the date that Israel was established, and translated it means the day of catastrophe. Civil unrest is brewing here at home. Greece is about to collapse, which, might give our treasuries temporary bump, but please do not be fooled. It will, in the end, pull our economy further down in the long run. And then you have the threats to Israel and the stability in the Middle East as they continue to increase. But if you watch the news today, you didn't learn any of that stuff. No, you learned, get this, I had to sit down after this. John Edwards is apparently a scumbag. I mean, who saw that coming? I didn't see that one. The media today is also damn near criminal for not following up on this next story. Obama's former pastor, Reverend Wright, was now quoted as saying some pretty shocking things to author Ed Klein. First and foremost was that Reverend Wright claims that a close associate of Barack Obama offered him $150,000 to keep quiet and not even preach during the 2008 election. Now, this book has been out for a few days. I mean, has anybody in the media followed up and called Reverend Wright to see if he actually said that? We talked about it on my radio program and said, this thing has to come out. It has to come out. Nobody called. This week, Klein released the tape of that interview. Sean Hannity played some of it last night. Only Sean Hannity and The Blaze have most of the audio. We don't have the full hours here of unedited tape. I don't know if Sean does. We were sent selected audio clips, and those clips are pretty shocking. I want you to know, however, The Blaze is actively pursuing all 3 hours to make sure this is all in context. We've learned our lesson before. We will show you tonight what we have so far exclusively on The Blaze. And I challenge ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, and MSNBC to see if they've done the same. I doubt they have. But now that this is out, CNN has laid down the gauntlet, saying that now Jeremiah Wright, oh, you're bringing him up in the news again? Well, it's time to go after Mormonism. No. See, we're not attacking the president's faith. This has nothing to do with religion. Let me be very clear to CNN. If Mitt Romney tried to bribe a bishop to silence him during the election, we at The Blaze and at GBTV would absolutely investigate. Let's talk apples to apples here, CNN. Common sense and truth. These tapes, I want you to understand, are not he said, she said. You can actually use your noodle and discover who is telling the truth here. Obama has been caught telling the fiction of his life from the beginning. But Reverend Wright hasn't. I disagree with Reverend Wright. His version of the truth, I think, is nuts, horribly misguided in the very least. But one thing you can say about Reverend Wright is he does not ever hide who he is or what he believes. He says what he means and means what he says. In the first clip you're going to hear tonight, he's talking about evidence that he has that Obama was trying to figure out how he could distance himself from Jeremiah Wright without actually leaving the church. Listen.
You literally have a box?
Yeah, it's a cardboard box.
A cardboard?
About the size of that cabinet, yeah.
And you have in there, what do you have in there?
I have several things. I have, well, for instance, I read an article like this. I read an article where Obama, Axelrod, was quoted as being in conversation with Pastor Moss about the Obama staying at the church, how to pull that off by distancing the church from me.
When was this?
Oh, May, before he officially left the church. So that'd be April, May 2008. I've got the letter, his original letter that he sent to Otis first for his, what do you think? When he was leaving the church. While I was still the pastor, he's writing a letter to Otis. I got that.
I have to tell you, today on my radio program, I offered Jeremiah Wright $150,000 of my own money to find out what's inside of that cardboard box. I would imagine it would confirm a whole lot of suspicions that we've had about this president. We all know deep down inside there's something wrong with the faith of Barack Obama. I'm not saying that he's a Muslim. You don't even have to go there. I don't think that he's anything, quite honestly. I think he joined that church for political reasons. You don't ditch the guy who led you to Christ because the media doesn't like him. What kind of Christian is that? I mean, you want to talk about, no, I don't know him. What? Denying him 3 times. Woo. And then the flip-flop on gay marriage. Conveniently, when polling on gay marriage crossed the 50% approval mark, he says first, I'm not for it because of my Christian belief. Then, when it crosses the 50% mark, he says, because of my Christian belief, I'm for it. What is his faith, even? What is it? It sounds meaningless. The guy mocked the Old Testament and said the Bible endorsed slavery. In that context, this comment from Wright about President Obama and his wife makes sense.
She grew up in a Hyde Park kind of Jack and Jill links middle income, who think they're middle class, environment. She ain't no church affiliation.
Father was a priest in Catholic.
And when she came to the church, both of them came to the church. Their kids weren't raised in the church like you raise other kids in Sunday school and this, you know.
No.
No, because that church is not their thing. It never was their thing. Well, we know it wasn't his, but she was not the kind of black woman whose mama made her go to church, made her go to Sunday school, made her go to BYPU, if the Baptist, or Richard Allen, if they're Methodist. She wasn't raised in that kind of environment, so the church was not an integral part of their lives before they got married, after they got married.
But the church was an integral part of his politics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he needed that base.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So he's saying really that his faith didn't mean anything. Well, you're going to have to decide on your own, because President Obama has spoken about his faith at great length. He started his presidential campaign with the line, "Giving all praise and honor to God." He has said that phrase repeatedly.
Oh, giving all praise and honor to God for bringing us together here today. And I begin by giving all praise and honor to God.
Okay. The Audacity of Hope is one of Reverend Wright's sermons. But now we hear that he didn't care about going to church at all? Okay, now wait a minute, hang on. Which one is it? Are you a man of faith that actually listen and apply it, or not? Will anyone in the media, besides the internet and, GBTV and Sean Hannity, actually put these things together and ask the question? Here's another one. Wright explains how he found out that it wasn't just Republicans who were attacking him. Oh no.
I was in Los Angeles, and there was a pastors' meeting, interdenominational pastors' meeting, and they asked me to speak. After the questions and answers and all that, one of the pastors came up to me. He said, "This has nothing to do with your election. I just want you to know this. Please don't think it was just Republicans after you." I said, "What?" He said, "I was offered money by the Hillary Clinton campaign to tear you down."
Really?
He said, "But I knew you, so I didn't take the job, but I can tell you the guy here in Los Angeles who took it. She paid black preachers to attack you."
Wow, can you smell the sulfur here? You want to talk about being evil, bribing a minister. I'm not sure who's worse here, the Clinton campaign for making the offer or the pastors who took the cash. Even the white hat in this story admits he just didn't take it because he knew Reverend Wright. How about the fact that you didn't take it because you knew the difference between right and wrong? You may have noticed Obama's angry rhetoric at big banks and corporations. It's often in direct opposition of his policies that give his so-called villains breaks. You can't understand it? Well, Reverend Wright explains why.
Earlier this year, there was an all-day symposium on Barack Obama and the Black Agenda. And you can Google that and get it off YouTube. Minister Farrakhan was, from what I watched on YouTube, sat there not saying anything. And so the moderator said to him, "Minister Farrakhan, don't you have anything to say?" And he said, "Yeah, I have a lot to say, but I'm listening, I'm learning." Mm-hmm. They said, "No, I mean, what's your perspective?" He said, "I think our brother needs a lot of help. I think he thought he could make these changes, the change he hoped for, the change we hoped for could come about with his being elected. I think he can't do that by himself. He needs a lot of help." But what I'm most amazed about is that as I listen to the conversation today, nobody has mentioned this. We keep forgetting that Barack Obama was selected before he was elected. You didn't select him. He's accountable to the ones who selected him and who paid for him to be the president. And I said, why do you think Wall Street got a break? They selected him. Why do you think the big three got a buyout? General Motors, Ford, President. They selected him. Why do you think he stands up and says, "I am AIPAC. I am a Zionist"? You have the money to select him.
I'm sorry, but I think that's true. He's in their pocket. GM didn't win the bailout. Who won in the bailout? The unions did. Who won in healthcare reform? You didn't. The average person didn't. SEIU did. One last clip, and this one is more stunning and more revealing audio clip that I think you'll ever hear. Wright tells how Obama was different right after the election.
Was he confident about being elected?
At that point, yes, and he saw me as yes. He was confident, he was very hopeful, but he saw me as a deterrent, which is why he didn't want me to say anything.
How did you two leave each other that day in your living room?
He said, "I'm sorry you don't see it that way." I said, "Oh, the most profound thing he said to me that day, he said, you know what your problem is?" I said, "What's my problem?" "You have to tell the truth." I said, "That's a good problem to have." Which is my point again. Politicians don't have to tell the truth. Truth is what we say it is. Well, I can't live with that. That's why I can never be a politician. But I think that the transformed Barack has become a politician.
And when do you think that happened?
Once he got in office.
Presidency or Senate?
Presidency.
Presidency.
It's pretty profound. Obama says, the problem is, you, Jeremiah, right, have to tell the truth. That's the problem? Who says that? We've been finding out over the last couple of weeks, Obama's whole life is a work of fiction. We've had all of this and we've pieced it together over the years, beginning at CNN and then over at Fox. But it's really starting to become crystal clear. I really believe it's what Bill Clinton meant when he said this.
Well, how could you say that when you said in 2004 you didn't know how you would have voted on the resolution? You said in 2004 there was no difference between you and George Bush on the war, and you took that speech you're now running on off your website in 2004, and there's no difference in your voting record in Hillary's ever since. Give me a break. This whole thing is the biggest fairy tale I've ever seen.
There it is. More conflicting facts keep coming out about this fairy tale. Like this one this afternoon from Breitbart.com. This is Barack Obama's profile picture on a promotional booklet produced in 1991 by Barack Obama's then literary agency, which touts Obama as, quote, born in Kenya, raised in Indonesia and Hawaii. Now, I want to make this extraordinarily clear. I believe that Barack Obama is a citizen and was born in Hawaii, period. End of the story, at least for me. This revelation doesn't change that for me. It actually deepens my understanding of what's really going on. It fits into exactly what we've been talking about. His life is a fairy tale. He will say whatever he has to be able to make himself the star. Maybe somebody got it wrong, but I have to tell you, I work with literary agents. They don't get something that wrong. Maybe somebody made it up, maybe even him, just added that line, kind of like Elizabeth Warren did, to make him sound more exotic and international. But this story may end up being another big distraction because the birthers are going to come out in force, and more stories are going to get ignored. Like, what happened at Great Book Farm in Massachusetts? This is a park. It happened over Mother's Day weekend. This is one of those farms that does it all, including running a very popular ice cream stand and actually defrays much of the cost for the farm. It was a beautiful weekend, and Mark Duffy, who has operated this farm for 26 years, was getting ready to serve a ton of ice cream that weekend. That is, until armed environmental police officers showed up at the stand and shut it down. I'm sorry, I've never heard of armed environmental police officers. Why did they come? No permits. They claimed construction had been done without local or state permits, and they were just concerned about safety. Duffy says the whole reason he was hired in the first place was to keep the place maintained. He said, I've been doing projects like this one for 26 years. Now, out of all times, they sent in armed environmental officers to an ice cream stand? What are they going to do? Put down the strawberry cone! You got to be kidding me. This weekend, my son and I were reading this. It's not really a comic book. It's an ad. But it is for Legos. Legos have reinvented themselves. It's fantastic. But we got to this page. I've never seen anything like it. I'm surprised when I read the story about armed environmental police. Here's the Lego. It's Lego City, the Forest Police Pursuit. Here's the Forest Police Jail. In the National Forest, the Forest Police SWAT team? Since when do we have forest SWAT teams? This is why we're doing the National Lemonade Stand at glenbeck.com. Please go there now. I mean, look how ridiculous we're getting. I can't bring in a piece of pie or any kind of food because the salt content might be too much. I have to have a permit to give someone a sandwich if they're homeless. You got to be kidding me. You want to have lemonade and have your kids at 7 years old sell it? You know who did that at 7 and didn't get a permit? Ruth Bader Ginsburg. It's insanity. Common sense. Is it common sense to shut down an ice cream stand now? 13 teenagers have lost their jobs because of this. This farm is losing one of its major revenue streams and may shut down. In this case, it's obvious. It's obvious what common sense is. And sometimes, you know, sometimes it takes a little work to strip off all of the crap, find the common sense, and restore it. Other times, you have to look for things that have been completely discarded and thrown away. But it's important that we look. You'll never guess when you start looking for the truth what kind of gems you'll find. I was in an old antique shop, little hole-in-the-wall mom and pop place. This is, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. And I noticed back in the corner of this little antique store, wrapped just in old newspaper, were these pipes, these lead pipes. I was curious to what they were. My wife was like, "What are you doing with the lead pipes?" I said, "I just want to know what they are." The guy just about broke into tears when I walked up. He was sitting at this little teeny desk, a phone paper stacked everywhere, and he looked up and he said, "You found the pipes? Are you interested in the pipe?" I said, "Well, I don't know what they are. I just wondered what they were." He said, "My wife has made fun of me for years about these pipes. She said, throw them away. Nobody's ever going to want them." I said, "Well, what are they?" And he said, "Well, I found them in a garbage can. They had been ripped out of an old church and left for dead. I had them framed and put in here. These are the original lead pipes from the organ at St. John's Parish. This is in New Hampshire. This is where Daniel Webster and George Washington used to attend church during the American Revolution, and they would listen to these pipes." It brings me back to this: common sense and truth. Sometimes it takes a little bit of work to dig through all of the crap and the garbage. You have to dig through all the kind of stuff or stories that no one thinks are important. But if you hold on to two things, common sense and the truth, you will find the truth and common sense in some of the most unexpected places, and you will find some of the most unexpected things. Preserve those things, restore them, enshrine them, and share them with others, because they're pretty cool when you find them. Coming up next, a guess who found something in the proverbial garbage that I believe is the key, and so does he, to our restoration. Next. The president's life is fiction. You could call it a lie, but it is so far beyond a lie and a politician's lie. It is now in a novel. It is complete fiction. What most people don't know is the extent of the lies that we have been told. I wish these things weren't true, because when you really start to unravel all this stuff, something sinister is here. He's in charge of our future. Does he truly, is he a good representation of what you believe? Somebody needs to remember all this stuff, because this will be history someday. Someday all of this truth will come out. Underwriter is FreedomWorks. They're just about 2 months now from restoring love on July 28th, and hopefully you'll be joining me here in Dallas for it. I know my friends from FreedomWorks are all going to be here. I hope to see all of the 9/12ers and the Tea Parties from all over, not just the United States, but now the world. FreedomWorks is hosting something called Free Pack on Thursday, July 26th, 2 days before we meet at Dallas Cowboy Stadium. And I invite you to join other like-minded Americans who are interested in restoring freedom from the bottom up in their neighborhoods, in the states, all across the nation, and all across the globe. Go to freedompack.com today and pre-register for your opportunity to join me. FreedomWorks Chairman, former House Majority Leader Dick Armey is going to be there. The President of FreedomWorks, Matt Kibbe, is there. If you trust and know that divine providence is going to play a role in restoring our freedom, you don't want to miss this event. It is one for the history books, literally, the kickoff of a global Tea Party movement. Pre-register now at freepack.com. That's freepack.com. We will see you there.
The TRS Files, True Tax Resolution Stories.
Hi, I'm Stuart B. I'm in the insurance industry, and I'm from Southern California. I faced a potential liability of $106,000. Tax resolution services settled for $9,200.
If you owe the IRS over $20,000 or more in back taxes, have unfiled returns, or are under audit, call Tax Resolution Services now, 888-7804-TAX, or visit taxresolution.com/GBTV.
Hi everyone, this is Amelia from FreedomWorks, here to invite you to a very special event. Free Pack is a national gathering of Americans interested in restoring freedom. This year's event will feature speeches from Glenn Beck, Dick Armey, Matt Kibbe, and many of the biggest names in the freedom movement. So go to freepack.com today to pre-register and help restore liberty in your community and across the nation.
It's an unpredictable world. Disaster can strike at any time. That's why Stove in a Can should always be part of your emergency survival plan. With power out and gas lines down, Stove in a Can cooks your food and rapidly boils water. Portable, safe, and easy to use. With an all-natural waterproof fuel source you can store indefinitely. Say goodbye to dangerous propane, lighter fluid, and gas. Don't wait until it's too late. Stock up today and protect your family. Special bundle offers available at stoveinacan.com.
Attention those on Medicare with diabetes. You may be eligible for an upgraded meter.
If you're tired of stabbing your fingertips to test your blood glucose, we have news that could change your life. If you're on Medicare with diabetes, then you need to know there's an alternative method for checking your blood glucose every day. You don't need to stab your fingertips anymore. The Embrace meter from Diabetes Care Club is easier to use and nearly painless. And the best news is that Diabetes Care Club would love to send you one of these meters. This method hurts less, and because you can see and hear your results, it may be easier to understand.
Your blood glucose reading is 89.
Call now to find out why. Nearly 250,000 patients have joined Diabetes Care Club. Membership is free, so is the call.
Call 1-800-213-7027.
Talk to Diabetes Care Club. You'll be glad you did.
Coming up on Real News, getting ready for the debt ceiling showdown, part 2. Matt, what's going on?
Well, Obama's been pushing this do-nothing Congress. Well, Speaker Boehner doesn't like that, so he is going to bring up to the forefront the debt ceiling debate once again. But he said the only way that he's going to really agree with Obama on his debt ceiling if Obama stops spending. So what I think we're going to have is another battle coming forward, which could affect not only the U.S. markets, the global economy. This could be really big going forward next couple of months.
All right, that's up next on Real News from the Blaze right after Glenn at 6 o'clock.
Years ago, God spoke to a man called Abraham.
Through thee, all nations will be blessed.
Setting in motion an irrevocable link between heaven and earth. A link that bestows powers and blessings, but also terrible consequences. The men that knew this power used it to build the greatest nation on earth. Others threatened to use it to destroy us. An ancient battle that continues today. The Covenant, America's sacred and immutable connection to ancient Israel, by Timothy Ballard.
This is such a shocking book because of its truth that you don't even know. It is shocking because so much of this history has been completely dismissed and buried. Why? 1776, George Washington says, beg for forgiveness, fast and pray, beg the Lord to be on our side or that we can be on his side. And he did it again in July. We'll explain what happened because of that day. I'm joined with Tim Ballard. He's a historian, author of The Covenant, available now at legendslibrary.org and also on Amazon.com. Welcome. How are you, sir?
I'm great. It's great to be here.
You put this book together, and this is not the book you expected to write.
That's correct.
Okay. You were writing a book on
foreign policy. I work for the United States government, and a lot of work overseas and helping children who are being exploited. And I was fascinated by the power for good that America was in this instance. And I wanted to kind of find the roots of that greatness. And I thought I should start with a chapter or two on the founding, because there's something there probably. Well, I never got to the foreign policy part. Those two chapters turned into a whole book. And that goodness is the title of the book. That goodness, the power, is the covenant.
You know, de Tocqueville said that we are, or he's credited as saying, he found America's goodness in her churches. We are great because we are good. This is much further than just be good.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Take me from Columbus and tell me the story of what the covenant is.
The covenant is, I will be your God, you will be my people. We read about this in the Old Testament. Well, what if the Old Testament story is replayed on American soil? And my contention is that it was. And we can go back to Columbus himself. What a fascinating person in our history that is completely underrated and cast aside. Columbus understood a lot of things about what he was doing. And he said, if you read in his journal, the Book of the Prophecies, he called it, he said, I am discovering a new world. He thought it was the Indies, but it was a new world. And it's going to begin a chain of events that will restore Israel.
This is so amazing, as we talked about on my radio program today, because maybe 2 years ago, I went to a few scholars, including Dr. Peter Lilback, and I said, I'm telling you, we made a covenant, and our founders knew it, and it was all leading up to the founding of Israel. And the question will be whether we are now, if we've outlived our usefulness because we're no longer living the covenant. And Peter said to me, Glenn, you know, he's a formal scholar on George Washington and his religious writings, and he said, I don't think you can make that case. And I said, Peter, would you just look? He was on the show a couple of months ago, and he wrote a little book about that big just on what George Washington said about Israel. He called me up and he said, Glenn, believe it or not, I think you're right. I think you're right. And it only makes common sense. We talked about this earlier today. America's Prophet, this is Bruce Feiler.
Excellent book.
Great book. It's about how America, all the way from the Pilgrims and Columbus, knew. They knew they were coming over. I haven't read this.
You got to read it.
Got to read it.
Yes.
Okay. And then McCullough.
Awesome.
McCullough also talks about something that you talk about in your book, which is, he talks about the fog, but you talk specifically about the covenant of that fog.
Right.
Explain what George Washington did.
On May 17th, 1776. Today, which, awesome that I get to be here explaining it today. George Washington called his men to fast and pray. And he told them that we will only be victorious if God blesses our arms. And he actually issued that in conjunction with the Continental Congress. And he did it again in July. In fact, he did it before all the major miracles and battles that we can read about. And so he knew the British were coming. And he knew when they came, I mean, he's leading a band of citizen soldiers, farmers. And what's he thinking? How on earth is he going to take on the superpower of the world? Because he knows something, the secret. There's a covenant, and he can tap into it, and he's trying desperately to do it. He issues these calls. Now, the Battle of Long Island begins, and we know the story. The British.
Most people don't.
You're probably right. And so what happens? The Americans get routed. They get spanked pretty hard. Washington and his men go running back to the East River. They've got to get over this mile-wide East River back into New York, back to safety, and get out of town. The problem is the British are sending up their powerful navy to sandwich them in at Brooklyn Heights.
Right.
So what does Washington do? He says, we're going to cross anyway. His commanders say, you're nuts. How are you going to do this? Again, Washington knew. Nighttime falls. They make the crossing. The British land troops don't know he's on the move because they keep the campfires going, make it seem like they're bedding down for the night. An enormous windstorm, and McCullough talks about this, rushes down this East River and keeps the Navy back. The British can't make their way up. And he makes his crossing. Now, night is going to break. Okay, the sun's coming up. The scheme will be exposed. What happens? Right as the sun comes up, a pea soup fog drops down. They called it a pea soup fog, a providential fog. It was God. They knew it. They said it was.
All of them.
All of them.
Even the British.
And yeah, they did. They had to. What else could they say? The fog wasn't anywhere else. It was just right there. 20 minutes after the last man crosses that river, and that last man is Washington, that says something, the fog dissipates. In enough time for the British to look over the river and just put their hands in the air and say, what on earth?
Where did they go? How did that happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a miracle.
Okay, so you contend, and I do as well, that when we got down on our knees and prayed and fasted and begged God, forgive us, please help us, we will do your will, we're not asking you to be on our side, we'll be on your side, will you just be our God, we'll be your people. That just as he did with ancient Israel, he made a covenant, and he honored that. We have slipped out of that covenant several times. I think we started slipping out of that covenant after all the founders died around 1830. It got ugly, manifest destiny. But then we slipped back into it, and you know the scene. It's when Lincoln is on the battlefield, and he keeps losing and losing and losing. His son dies, right?
Absolutely.
And he's like, what do you want from me?
Yes.
And he makes a covenant on a battlefield.
That's exactly right.
And he makes this covenant, and it happens again, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. When we come back, I want to talk to you about the presidents that were that have made the covenant, because I'd like to know, how did we make it through World War II? Because I don't think FDR was making this covenant. And then also what the covenant is, because there's specific things at the end of the book that you say, these are the things we have to do. Do you want this blessing? You have to do these things. Back in just a second.
Hi everyone, this is Amelia from FreedomWorks, here to invite you to a very special event. FreePAC is a national gathering of Americans interested in restoring freedom. This year's event will feature speeches from Glenn Beck, Dick Armey, Matt Kibbe, and many of the biggest names in the freedom movement. So go to freepack.com today to pre-register and help restore liberty in your community and across the nation.
If you're a diabetic and currently trying to lose weight, please stay tuned to this important message. A market trial offer is starting now for a revolutionary breakthrough in weight loss called glucosilin, and you are eligible to try it free for 30 days. Clinical studies of the key ingredient have shown this ingredient to be effective in accelerating weight loss. What's even more impressive is that it also supports healthy blood sugar metabolism at the same time. Call immediately to receive your free 30-day trial. 1-888-433-8171.
Are you a homeowner 62 or older? Are you looking to access cash from your home or eliminate your monthly mortgage payment? How about both? Then call the number on your screen. With a reverse mortgage, there are no monthly mortgage payments. You will still own your home and you will have many options on how to receive your cash. Call now. It's time to get all the facts, and Reverse Mortgage Solutions is here to help.
Call 855-200-1039. That's 855-200-1039.
When it's warm, you'd love to open every door and let fresh air into your home. The trouble is, you'd end up letting lots of bugs into your home as well. Now there's Magic Mesh, the new type of screen door that opens easily and then magically closes itself behind you. The secret isn't really magic, it's magnets. 18 magnets to be exact. When you separate them, they automatically snap back together. That makes it great for pets too, because instead of scratching and whining, they can come and go as they please. So let the fresh air in and keep those annoying bugs out with Magic Mesh, a $40 value, yours for just $19.95. But wait, call right now and we'll double the offer. Just pay separate processing and handling. You get 2 Magic Mesh curtains for just $19.95. Don't delay. Call and order yours today.
To order Magic Mesh for $19.95 plus processing and handling, call 1-800-572-9265 or log on to buymagicmesh.com.
We're talking about a book called The Covenant that is an absolute must-read. It is a lost portion of history in America that is absolutely, positively true. Timothy Ballard is the author. I want to, first, before we go to what we have to do, I want you to take me through 1775, Boston, what happened, triple miracle.
The triple miracle. A pattern was set. We've talked about the pattern in 1776, the invocation of the covenant. But this was actually happening before Bunker Hill. They were issuing, Washington and the Congress were issuing pleas to the nation to beg forgiveness, to turn to God. Washington lands in Boston. Bunker Hill had already happened, and he's rearing to go. What's going on is that the British have seized the city, and Washington and his men are on the outskirts across the Charles River, and Washington wants to get in there. By the spring, or thereafter, a little after, in the springtime, March, the British pick up and take off before there can be a battle. Washington walks into the city, and he's upset. He wanted to take them on. He walks in, and he has this moment. He says, we would have been crushed. The city's fortified beyond anything we could have done. It would have been over. The miracle here is that God kicked him out of Boston. It was a triple miracle. First, and rewind before Washington gets into the city, the portly Knox, bookseller and general extraordinaire, knew the covenant, read the scriptures with his men. Washington sent him on an impossible journey. 300 miles, go seize the guns of Fort Ticonderoga and bring them back here, because we have no guns. And in the meantime, Washington's figuring out a plan. How am I going to attack and get the Boston back? Dorchester Heights, south of Boston, it's the high ground, the only high ground besides Bunker Hill, which they had lost. Washington says, let's take it. Well, the British know it's there, and they're saying, if they move on that thing, attack, because that's the only place they can even have a chance at us. Washington tells his commanders, we're taking the heights. They say, you're crazy. Again, we're moving. He moves them. Just before he's about to go, Henry Knox shows up with a cannon. Okay? Then, talk about a providential fog. The night he's going on to take the heights, a fog drops down. And this is their words, not mine. A fog drops down so the British can't see anything down below. They get the cannon all the way to the top of the mountain, to the heights. And it's a beautiful, clear night above the clouds. They can't believe it. They're saying, God's doing this for us. In the morning, the British look up there, and they say, one of the commanders, hilarious, he says, I think Washington must have found Aladdin's wonderful lamp. What just happened? Now Washington thinks we're going to take them. We're going to get them. Howe, the general on the British side, kind of freaks out and says, we got to go now. Let's attack. He gets his men all ready. They get in the boats to cross the river. The hurricane. Miracle number 3. The hurricane hits, pushes them back, destroys their plans, and really, Howe gets scared. He's like, I'm out of here. I am out of here. And that's when Washington comes in, and he's kind of ticked still because he wanted to fight. And that's when he says, look what God just did. That Sabbath, he goes to a church before heading out of New England. He goes to a church and hears the sermon. And the sermon identifies this cause as Israel's cause. He quotes, the pastor quotes in Exodus, and he says, when God fights for Israel, Israel wins.
Okay, how true that is. Let me go now quickly to the scene on the front cover of your book. Here it is. This is Washington taking the oath.
Yes.
Tell me what he's got his hand on the Bible.
Yes.
He ad-libs, so help me God.
Yes.
What's the scripture?
The scripture. Now, the scripture, to get the full context, you really have to read, because it's deep and it's profound. It's from Genesis 49. People say that the Bible doesn't talk about America. The Bible doesn't have anything to do with America. I take issue with that. I believe it does, and I believe Washington knew it did. Washington had his hand in a scripture that most people wouldn't even recognize. It is profound. It's the key to unlocking the prophecies about America. I believe the ancients did see America, and I believe I have proof of it.
And that's in the book?
It's in the book.
Okay. Explain World War II. How did we, I mean, I guess the people were good, but I don't think FDR was making covenants with God.
But the question is, who sealed the deal? Mm-hmm. Who was the president when we achieved our victory? That's significant. There's a covenant maker in Harry Truman.
Harry Truman knew. He read his scriptures. He was just a brilliant man and a God-fearing man.
Yes.
And if it wasn't for Harry Truman, Israel wouldn't exist.
Exactly.
And all the gates of hell opened up against Harry Truman to establish to Israel. We are moving away. We're moving in the wrong direction now. How long have we been doing that, do you think?
I think it's been a constant battle. But I think in the last, maybe decade or so, we've been going further and further away.
All right. So let me go to the end here, where you say there are certain things that we have to do, a charge to keep, living the covenant today. You just go over. The first one is keep the commandments and serve the God of the land.
Right.
Pretty easy.
It's pretty, yeah.
Yeah, pretty simple.
To God.
Next one. Promote separation of church and state, not separation of God and state.
Yes, what a concept that we just have lost. Our jurists, our secular jurists have completely forgotten. There's a difference between separation of church and state and the separation of God and state. Separation of church and state means we don't want any religion supporting or hurting or meddling with any particular denomination, any set of beliefs. But that's not to say that God is to be taken out of this. Religion doesn't equal God in the sense of the First Amendment. And the founders knew it. They're the ones that wrote the amendment in the first place, and they welcomed God at every opportunity.
I think it's also that get government out of the church. Leave the church alone. Leave it alone.
Exactly.
Participate in government.
Yeah, we need to pay attention. I mean, yeah.
Don't legislate immorality.
Right.
I always hear it the other way. You can't legislate morality.
And I agree with that too. We cannot. I wouldn't legislate morality because we need to keep freedom alive. You don't want to start telling people you have to do this. It has to be your choice. But the flip side of the coin, you don't legislate immorality. You can't slap our national seal on something that is immoral behavior. You live and let live, but you can't say we're going to promote and sponsor this. How does God look at that, looking down at us?
What is be slow to political wrath? That's step number 5.
That has to do with the idea that we as a nation pick at each other as if it's some sports contest, Republican versus Democrat, and we get so, we're not worried about truth anymore. We get so angry that we're not even worried about finding the truth. We're just worried about looking like we're right.
See, because I have to tell you, I mean, we have, because we do a lot of research on the show, and we struggle because we get really pissed off because nobody's looking at the truth. You know, I got pissed off with George W. Bush. I was called on the carpet at the Oval Office because I spoke the truth. The same thing with Barack Obama.
Yes.
And we have to stay away from political wrath, but that doesn't mean that we stop speaking the truth.
No, no. And I say in that very section, righteous indignation. That's not what I'm talking about. We can have that. We should have that. We need to scream out, and as long as we're looking for the truth.
Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. One of my favorite scriptures.
Yes.
Meaning?
People, again, go back to Israel, because it's just being replayed again. The children of Israel were scared. A lot of them, if you read the account, they left slavery. Some of them wanted to go back because they realized something. With freedom comes responsibility. Mm-hmm. We have, freedom from slavery is slavery to goodness. Martin Luther King said that, and he understood these principles. And what's happening now is people are scared. Instead of putting their faith in God, I mean, you talk about this all the time, they're putting their faith in Pharaoh. Mm-hmm. They're putting their faith in the state. Take us, feed us, do everything for us. God's saying, turn to me. I will make it happen. Fear not. I will make it happen for you. The state's not. They'll take you by the hand, but they're going to lead you in the wrong direction.
Deliver the Bible, number 7.
The Bible is our roadmap. The founder said we're the new Israel. The Pilgrims said it. The revolutionaries said it. We're the new Israel. So the roadmap is in the Old Testament. That tells the Old Testament largely is the national covenant. That's what it is. The New Testament talks more about your personal covenants in your personal faith and your relationship with Christ. But the Old Testament is largely the national covenant. It's our story, which is why the founding fathers quoted more out of the Old Testament than any other book. And I'm talking non-religious books.
Oh, I know. 33% more than anything else.
It was their inspiration because they were invoking the same covenant.
And this is the last one, and what do you mean by take the blessings to every nation?
That means we stand for for constitutional principles. God gave us this land. He gave us the power. We must take a stand. We don't turn our backs on the oppressed. I'm in a job where I'm lucky to see the United States going out into a foreign country and finding children who are being abused in the worst way. And I get to be part of helping bring the power of the United States to liberate them. And I don't like to see stories where we forsake people overseas who are good people trying to do good things.
This is an important book. It is an important story that you're not going to get anyplace else. You're not going to get the story of the covenant. Nobody even speaks in these terms anymore, but I am telling you, I know it to be true. I know it to be true that we would not have been able to beat the British. We wouldn't have been able to conquer slavery and save the Union. We wouldn't have been able to win the Second World War. Israel wouldn't have been established. We wouldn't have been the people to do any of this stuff had we not made a covenant with God. The name of the book is The Covenant. Go to Amazon.com right now and grab your copy of it and read it. The Covenant by Timothy Ballard. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Back in a minute. Do you remember when we were kids? This was the first opportunity to be an entrepreneur, whether we knew it or not. We'd set a little table out in front of our house and we'd try to sell lemonade, and most of us never sold a single cup except to our parents. It's an American tradition and one that is slipping through our fingers. Now, apparently we need permits to sell lemonade. We need permits to have bake sales. We can't have our kids hug each other in school. What do you say? We teach our kids. We teach our kids, and we stop and we buy lemonade. That's why on June 14th here in Dallas, we're going to have a lemonade sale, bake sale, and hug-a-thon. I invite you to join me if you're in the area and watch us on GBTV. But if you're not, no matter where you are, this summer, that week, I ask you to go find a card table in the garage or the attic, dust it off, set it up. Sell some lemonade with your kids. Teach them what American summers are really like. Find out all the details now at glenbeck.com. All the proceeds go to charity. I have to tell you, it is so funny because we tried to make that look like it was daylight, but it just wouldn't work. I filmed that in the middle of the night last night. Food insurance is our underwriter. If cuts aren't made to government spending, we are headed down the same path as Europe, and I've been saying it for a while now, but I'm not the only one that thinks that. Yesterday, Tom Coburn was on this program, and he told me we've got 2 to 5 years to fix our economy. If you lose your job, if the country plunges into some sort of depression, how much food do you have? How about if somebody else, you know, half of this nation last year, half of us gave money to family members because they needed it. We're going to have to be a lifeboat for somebody else. Be prepared. Go to foodinsurance.com. Order great varieties of pre-prepared meals that are really delicious that you and your family will actually want and will eat. And it lasts up to 25 years. It's easy, it's portable, it's good. Food insurance, 866-9-GOT-FOOD. Call them now, 866-9-GOT-FOOD, or go to foodinsurance.com.
Like you, I would do anything to protect my family. That's why I have food insurance, the emergency food supply that guarantees my family's most basic needs, safe and nutritious food. These high-quality freeze-dried meals last up to 25 years and are compact, affordable, and delicious. Start with a 2-week supply or plan for several months, whatever's right for you. Provide security for your family. Order food insurance today.
It's an unpredictable world. Disaster can strike at any time. That's why stove in a can should always be part of your emergency survival plan. With power out and gas lines down, stove in a can cooks your food and rapidly boils water. Portable, safe, and easy to use. With an all-natural waterproof fuel source you can store indefinitely. Say goodbye to dangerous propane, lighter fluid, and gas. Don't wait until it's too late. Stock up today and protect your family. Special bundle offers available at stoveinacan.com.
Hi everyone, this is Amelia from FreedomWorks, here to invite you to a very special event. Free Pack is a national gathering of Americans interested in restoring freedom. This year's event will feature speeches from Glenn Beck, Dick Armey, Matt Kibbe, and many of the biggest names in the freedom movement. So go to freepack.com today to pre-register and help restore liberty in your community and across the nation.
You look so beautiful, but you're about to lose everything.
You're gonna lose everything.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here.
You're gonna lose your files.
There's no warning when you lose your computer files. That's why you need Carbonite Online Backup. So whatever happens, your files are safe. Try it for free at carbonite.com.
Mortgage lenders lied. Banks cheated and committed fraud. If you believe you're the victim of lender negligence, greed, or corruption, if your home is worth less than what you owe, if you're currently in or facing foreclosure, or if you have a sale date, 1-800-513-0934. Our job is to dramatically lower your mortgage balance or lower your interest rate to just 2% fixed for life. Take action now. When you lose your home, it will be too late. 1-800-513-0934.
The story I'm about to tell you seems a little hard to believe. It's almost like an Abbott and Costello joke, but it's not. This story is 100% true. The government recently issued a study to study a study done on government studies. Confused yet? 2 years ago, Robert Gates, who was the defense secretary at the time, felt the Pentagon was, quote, awash in taskings for reports and studies. So the obvious solution was to issue a study to review how much of all of the studies and reports were costing the Pentagon and who was reading them. I'll give you a second to figure this one out. Now, 2 years have passed, and the Pentagon's study to study all of its studies still isn't done. But because it was taking so long to study the study of studies, Congress asked the Government Accountability Office, the GAO, to look over the Pentagon's shoulder. And I'm happy to report that the GAO has just finished its study and determined the Pentagon's study of studies was lacking. Since 2010, the Pentagon has only reviewed 9 of its studies. But the DoD wasn't able to readily retrieve documentation for 6 of those studies. This all according to a study by ABC News. No word from the GAO on what the price tag was on the study of the studies to study all of the studies. This is America under Barack Obama. This is your taxpayer dollar hard at work. Thanks to big government, they'll continue to study the problem. And we'll just continue to roll up our sleeves and fix it. From Dallas, good night, America.
Breaking news tonight. We've got real news. This just in. Real news from the Blaze.